The rain had been falling since noon, thin and persistent, the kind that never stops long enough to give you hope. I stood on the rooftop of Wolfe Dynamics, 27 floors above the city, watching the storm smear the skyline into watercolor. The air was sharp and metallic, the wind tugging at my coat. I wasn't supposed to be up there. Employees weren't allowed on the top deck without clearance. But no one cared to check the access door anymore. It was supposed to be a quick break. 5 minutes to breathe. 5 minutes to stop pretending that everything was fine. My hands were trembling slightly as I stared at the email still glowing on my phone screen. The promotion I'd worked toward for almost a year had vanished with one sentence. Position reassigned. That was all it said. No explanation, no apology, just those 2 words sitting there like a verdict. My chest felt hollow. I had done everything right. Every late night, every spreadsheet, every flawless report. And still someone else got it. Miranda's nephew. The kid who once asked me how to spell analytics. I laughed under my breath, a sound that cracked halfway through. The wind caught it and carried it away. Somewhere far below, horns blared, the city alive and indifferent. The rain soaked through my sleeves, cold enough to bite. I didn't move. If I moved, I would have to face it. I would have to go back down there, sit at my desk, pretend it didn't matter. Pretend I wasn't invisible. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't have to look to know it was Ethan. He'd probably seen my name missing from the announcement. He always noticed the small things, the things I tried to hide. The message preview flickered on the screen. "You okay up there?" I typed nothing, then deleted the nothing, then turned the phone face down on the concrete. The sky was bruised gray, the clouds heavy with another wave of rain. My reflection shimmered faintly in the puddle at my feet, distorted by ripples. I barely recognized the face staring back. The water blurred the edges, as if the world itself was trying to erase me. I crouched down, pressing my palms against the wet ground. My breath came shallow, almost shaky. Somewhere between exhaustion and despair, my mind went quiet. No words, no thoughts, just the steady rhythm of rain hitting metal. Then a voice, low and controlled, came from behind me. "It's not safe to cry that close to the edge." For a second I thought I imagined it. But when I turned, he was there. Adrian Wolfe. The man everyone in the building treated like a living deadline. CO. The kind of presence that made entire rooms fall silent when he walked in. He stood a few feet away, half-shadowed by the overhang, rain sliding down the dark fabric of his suit. He wasn't holding an umbrella. His hands were in his pockets, posture calm, expression unreadable. I scrambled to my feet, nearly slipping on the slick floor. "Sir, I didn't mean I just needed." He didn't move closer, but his gaze didn't waver either. Eyes the color of cold steel, watching, assessing, but not in the way that made you shrink. It wasn't pity. It wasn't curiosity. It was something quieter, something harder to name. "You're not supposed to be up here," he said. His tone was even almost gentle, but it carried weight. "I know," I managed. My voice sounded thin against the sound of rain. "I'll go." He took a slow breath, looking past me at the city stretched out below. "Do you always come here when things fall apart?" The question hit harder than it should have. He didn't know what had happened. He couldn't have. But somehow he did. Maybe it was written all over my face. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," I said quietly. He tilted his head slightly. "That's not what I asked." I hesitated. The truth balanced on the edge of my tongue, fragile and dangerous. "It's quiet up here," I finally said. "No one notices you when you're quiet." He nodded once, as if that answer made sense to him. A gust of wind blew between us, scattering droplets across the concrete. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The city hummed beneath our feet, 1,000 windows blinking in the storm. He took a step closer. Not threatening, not intrusive. Just enough to close the distance between two strangers caught in the same rain. "You work under Miranda Cole, don't you?" My throat tightened. "Yes, sir." His eyes flicked briefly to the phone on the ground, screen still lit with the unfinished email. Then I suppose congratulations are not in order. The air felt heavier somehow. He looked at me, and I felt exposed, as if he could see every long night, every swallowed frustration, every moment I told myself it would be worth it. She made her decision, I said, forcing a small, brittle smile. It happens. Does it? His tone wasn't skeptical, just tired, like someone who had heard that excuse too many times. You don't seem like someone who accepts things easily. I'm just an analyst, I said. No one cares what I accept. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, not sympathy. Recognition. He looked out over the railing again. When I was your age, he said after a pause, I thought silence was strength, that if I worked hard enough, the world would eventually notice. I didn't know how to respond to that. The CEO of Wolfe Dynamics was standing on the same wet rooftop as me, talking like a man who understood failure. The thought didn't make sense, but it didn't feel false either. He turned back to me. The rain had darkened his hair, a few strands clinging to his forehead. He didn't seem to care. What's your name? Jamie, I said. Jamie Ellis. He repeated it once like he wanted to test how it felt in his mouth. Jamie. Something in the way he said it made my pulse stumble. It wasn't intimate. It wasn't distant either. It was just deliberate. He checked his watch, then looked back at me. Be in my office. 8 a.m. I blinked. Sorry. I'm not repeating myself. And then he walked past me. The sound of his footsteps steady, unhurried, fading into the hum of rain. The door closed behind him with a soft metallic click. I stood there for a long time, staring at the place where he'd been. The air smelled of wet concrete and coffee. My clothes clung to my skin, heavy with rain, but I didn't feel cold anymore. I felt something else, something unsettling. I picked up my phone. Ethan had sent another message. Hey, don't stay out there too long. It's freezing. I typed back before I could think about it. I just met Adrian Wolfe. Then I erased the text. I didn't even know what that meant. The city stretched beneath me, endless lights blinking through the storm. I looked toward the horizon where the clouds broke for a second, a faint trace of silver behind them. Maybe it was just a trick of light, but it almost looked like morning trying to push through. For the first time in a long while, I wondered if someone had finally seen me. The next morning arrived too soon. I barely slept, my mind replaying that single moment on the rooftop. His voice kept echoing through the fog of my thoughts, low and certain, like a command I couldn't ignore. I arrived at work earlier than usual, long before the chatter and footsteps filled the halls. The office looked different in the quiet. The glass walls reflected pale daylight, and the hum of the air system was the only sound alive. When I reached my desk, a notification was waiting in my inbox. Report to the executive floor, 8 a.m. No signature, no explanation, just the same clarity that belonged to him. I stared at it for a long time before pressing delete. Pretending I hadn't seen it would be easier, but the lie dissolved quickly. My reflection in the dark monitor looked too honest to believe it. The elevator ride up felt longer than it should have. The higher I went, the quieter everything became, until even the soft music stopped. The doors opened to a different world, one that smelled faintly of cedar and static electricity. The floor here was silent, the air heavier, the view outside enormous. I hesitated at the glass door marked Chief Executive Officer, my pulse erratic. Then I pushed it open. Adrian Wolfe was behind his desk, surrounded by morning light. The city framed him, a blur of steel and clouds behind his shoulders. He didn't look up immediately. He was scanning a file, expression focused, one hand resting on his chin. I waited in the doorway, unsure whether to speak or breathe. Close the door, he said without looking. I obeyed, the sound of it clicking shut unnervingly loud. He gestured toward the chair opposite him. Sit. I sat, unsure where to place my hands. He finally looked up. His eyes caught mine for a moment that seemed to stretch. I I felt as if the air itself slowed down, thick enough to taste. "You're joining Project Aurora," he said. The words landed softly but carried weight. "Sir, I don't think. It isn't a request." His tone was calm, not unkind, but final. "You'll report directly to me from now on." I blinked. "I'm not qualified for that. I work in analytics." He leaned back slightly, watching me. "Aurora is about understanding emotion. Data is the only way to begin." That didn't make sense. Nothing about this conversation did. "What exactly do you want me to do?" "Observe," he said simply. "And teach." "Teach what?" He paused, considering the question as if it had more weight than I understood. "Empathy." The word sounded strange in his mouth, too delicate for someone built entirely of control. He slid a file across the desk. Inside was a brief outline of the project. Artificial intelligence designed to read micro-expressions, tone, body language. Machines learning to feel what people forget. The concept was brilliant and terrifying. "You want me to teach emotion to a machine?" I asked quietly. He nodded once. "If we can make a system recognize sincerity, we might remember how to do it ourselves." I didn't know if he was joking. He didn't look like someone who joked. When the meeting ended, I left the office with my head spinning. My new desk was placed directly outside his glass wall, separated by transparency and nothing more. Every time I lifted my eyes, I could see him working inside, sleeves rolled up, fingers moving across the screen. The world around him seemed to orbit at a slower rhythm. The first day passed in silence. He spoke little, mostly in short directives. "Send me the figures. Review this output. Rewrite the summary." Yet even in that monotony, something was different. There was an undercurrent of attention, as if he was constantly aware of my presence, though he never once looked at me for too long. By evening, most of the staff had gone. The floor lights dimmed automatically, leaving only a warm haze. I stayed behind to finish calibrating the emotion recognition dataset. The system blinked on the monitor, showing distorted fragments of faces, half smiles, half frowns. I heard footsteps behind me and turned. Adrian was standing near the window, coat draped over one arm. He spoke without turning his head. "Do you believe people can really understand each other?" The question startled me. "I think we try," I said. "That isn't the same thing." "No," I admitted. "It isn't." He glanced back at me. The reflection of the city lights shimmered in his eyes, softening their usual sharpness. "When I built this company, I thought logic would be enough. Turns out people don't run on logic." I didn't know what to say to that. The CEO of Wolfe Dynamics was talking like someone standing at a confession booth. "Good night, Mr. Wolfe," I murmured. He nodded faintly, eyes drifting back to the skyline. "Good night, Jamie." The way he said my name was quieter this time, but it lingered in the air long after I left. In the following days, routine settled in like fog. Mornings began with reports, afternoons with silence. I learned how he worked. Precise, relentless, efficient to the point of cruelty. But between the commands, I caught glimpses of something else. The way his jaw tightened whenever lightning flashed outside. The faint tremor in his hand when he adjusted his glasses after reading certain documents. Little fractures in the mask that everyone believed was flawless. One evening, Ethan stopped by my desk, dropping a cup of coffee beside my keyboard. "You look like you're decoding aliens," he said. "It's close," I replied. "I'm training an AI to read emotions." He raised an eyebrow. "Maybe it'll teach us how to fake them better." I smiled weakly. "Maybe." His expression softened. "You sure you're okay working this close to him? People say he doesn't even breathe between meetings." I hesitated, glancing at the glass wall. Adrian was inside, speaking into his headset, posture straight, gaze unwavering. Yet there was something almost fragile about the way he pressed a hand to his temple when the call ended. "He's not what people think," I said. Ethan studied me. "You sound like someone defending him." "I'm just saying," I murmured. "Maybe he's tired. That night, as I packed my things, I saw Adrian still at his desk. Everyone else had gone. The floor was silent except for the faint hum of computers. He noticed me in the reflection of the glass and gestured toward a stack of folders. "Leave those on my table before you go." I brought them in, careful not to meet his eyes for too long. Up close, the fatigue was obvious. Shadows under his eyes, the faint roughness of stubble. Yet his posture remained perfect, controlled. "Do you ever stop working?" I asked before I could stop myself. He looked up, surprised by the question. "Do you?" I didn't answer. He closed the folder and leaned back slightly. "There's a difference between persistence and punishment. You might want to learn it." "I could say the same to you," I said before realizing I'd spoken aloud. A faint smile ghosted across his face, there for a second before disappearing. "Touché." He dismissed me then, and I left, heart thudding for reasons I didn't want to examine. Days slipped into weeks. Aurora evolved fast. The AI began identifying not just expressions but tones, hesitations, inconsistencies between words and feeling. It grew eerily perceptive, almost alive. Every time we tested it, I felt as if it was studying us in return. One afternoon, while reviewing the latest log, Adrian stood beside me, watching the data scroll. "You see that?" he asked. "It recognizes sincerity now." I nodded. "It's almost unsettling." "Good," he said quietly. "Maybe it'll remind us what honesty looks like." He didn't elaborate and I didn't ask. But later, when I glanced at him through the glass, he was standing motionless, eyes on the distant clouds, expression unreadable. That night, I dreamed of rain again. The rooftop, the cold air, the sound of his voice saying my name like a fact that couldn't be erased. When morning came, the world outside the window was clear for the first time in weeks. Yet inside, something in me felt heavier. Something unnamed had begun to shift, and I knew it wasn't just the project that was learning to feel. The first sign of trouble arrived quietly, the way cracks appear in glass before it shatters. One morning, when I walked into the office, conversations stopped too suddenly. Screens flickered with more than numbers. People whispered without looking up, the air sharp with something sour. Ethan caught my sleeve as I passed his desk. His expression told me everything before he said a word. "They're saying you and Wolfe have something going on," he muttered under his breath. I froze, the cup of coffee in my hand trembling slightly. "What?" "It started last night," he said, voice low. "Someone from your old department posted on the internal forum. They think that's how you got transferred to his team." The words hit harder than I expected. My heart stuttered. I wanted to laugh it off, but my throat refused to cooperate. "That's ridiculous." "Of course it is," Ethan replied, though his tone carried the weight of knowing how little that mattered. "But you know how rumors work." By lunchtime, everyone knew. Every glance felt heavier, every silence longer. The story had mutated in hours. Apparently, I'd spent months charming my way upward. Miranda's name floated in every version. I could almost hear her satisfaction behind it. When I walked into the conference room that afternoon, a hush followed. I kept my eyes on the table, focusing on the reflection of my hands instead of the faces watching me. The meeting felt endless. Numbers, projections, deadlines, all blending into meaningless noise. Afterward, Miranda approached me near the hallway. Her perfume arrived first, sweet and cloying. She smiled, that practiced kind of politeness that hides knives underneath. "Jamie," she said, voice smooth as glass. "I didn't expect to see you still around. Thought you might have taken some personal time." I met her eyes, steady despite the storm inside me. "Why would I?" "People talk," she replied, tilting her head slightly. "And not always kindly. It must be difficult, all that attention. Some of us had to work years to reach that floor." She wanted me to break in public. She wanted to watch me lose composure so she could prove her story right. Instead, I smiled faintly. "Some of us still work." Her expression faltered for half a second before she stepped closer. "Be careful, Jamie. Men like him don't keep their toys for long. I walked away before she finished the sentence. My pulse hammered in my ears, anger mixing with humiliation. The elevator doors closed around me, reflecting my face back at me, pale and strained. For the first time since I joined Wolfe's team, I wanted to disappear again. By the time I reached my desk, Adrian was standing outside his office. The glass door was open, his gaze already fixed on me. His expression was unreadable, but the air felt charged. He gestured once. Inside, the door shut softly behind me. He didn't sit. Neither did I. "Do you know what's being said?" he asked, voice low. "Yes," I answered. My throat felt dry. He studied me, his jaw tightening. "And I didn't start it," I said quietly. "I never thought you did." His tone softened, but only slightly. He walked around the desk, stopping a few feet away. "Miranda Cole is responsible." The certainty in his voice startled me. "You're sure?" "She's done it before," he said. "Different target, same tactics. This time she crossed a line." He moved toward the window, hands clasped behind his back. "There will be a meeting this afternoon. You'll attend." "I don't want." "This isn't optional." His gaze met mine through the reflection in the glass. "You deserve to be defended properly." The rest of the day passed like the slow turn of a clock. When the announcement came for an emergency management meeting, everyone knew it wasn't about sales numbers. People gathered in the main conference hall, whispering in the corners. I took a seat near the back, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Adrian entered last. Silence followed him the way shadows follow light. He didn't need to raise his voice. He simply spoke, and the room listened. "I've been made aware of certain rumors concerning my team," he began, tone calm but laced with steel. "Let me be clear. These accusations are false. They undermine not only my integrity but the value of the people who actually keep this company alive." No one moved. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. He continued, eyes locked on Miranda, who tried to look unfazed and failed. "Ms. Cole," he said, "you've created a hostile environment under the pretense of professional concern. Consider this your formal suspension pending investigation." Gasps broke the silence. She opened her mouth, perhaps to argue, but he spoke again before she could. "If you have evidence, present it. Otherwise, you'll leave the premises by the end of the day." Her face drained of color. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair against the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Without another word, she walked out. Adrian turned back to the rest of the room. "The matter is closed." When the meeting ended, people avoided my eyes. The whispers had changed tone, now thick with shock instead of judgment. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or exposed. Later, as the office emptied, I found him standing near the large window overlooking the city. The sun had already sunk behind the towers, leaving streaks of orange across the sky. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "Yes, I did." His voice was quiet, almost tired. "You didn't deserve to carry that weight." I hesitated. "You'll get backlash for it. I've had worse." He glanced at me then, something softer breaking through the authority. "You shouldn't have had to defend yourself. I saw who you are long before anyone started talking." Something inside me cracked a little at those words. All day I'd been holding myself together with silence, and now it was slipping. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "Then don't," he replied. "Just keep doing your job." He started toward the door, then paused beside me. "And Jamie," he said, voice dropping lower, "don't let them make you smaller." When he left, the echo of his words stayed behind, filling the empty room. That evening, Ethan found me still at my desk. "You survived," he said, half teasing. "Barely," I replied, rubbing my temples. "He really went to war for you," Ethan said. "Everyone's talking about it." I've never seen him like that. I didn't know how to respond. The memory of Adrian's calm fury replayed in my mind. There had been no hesitation, no doubt. He had stood in front of everyone and drawn a line that couldn't be crossed. He didn't have to, I said again, softer this time. Maybe he wanted to, Ethan murmured. Maybe he saw something worth protecting. After he left, I sat there for a long while, watching the lights outside blur through the glass. The storm that had been gathering all week finally broke. Rain streaked down the windows, distorting the view of the city. Through the reflection, I saw movement in Adrian's office. He was still there, shoulders tense, head bowed slightly as he stared at something on his desk. A single lamp cast a faint circle of light around him. I wanted to thank him. I wanted to tell him what it meant to be defended like that. But I also knew that words wouldn't be enough. Some things were too fragile to name. I gathered my things and turned off the monitor. As I walked toward the elevator, I looked back one more time. He was still there, motionless, framed by rain and glass. For the first time since everything began, I felt something steady rise inside me. Not gratitude, not admiration, something deeper. The beginning of trust, quiet and dangerous, blooming like a secret I wasn't ready to admit even to myself. The night it happened, the building was almost empty. The sky outside was a deep navy, thick with quiet. Everyone else had gone home, but I stayed. My screen glowed against the darkness, lines of data scrolling endlessly, numbers bleeding into each other until they lost meaning. The soft hum of the ventilation was the only sound left. I told myself I just needed to finish one more report, one more set of revisions for the aurora logs. But my eyes burned, my head felt light, and the words blurred together. I hadn't eaten since morning. The coffee on my desk was cold, untouched for hours. Somewhere behind me, the elevator chimed faintly. I didn't pay attention. The city stretched far below, the streets reduced to thin veins of light. When I reached for the mouse, my hand slipped. The world tilted. Then everything went black. When I woke, the first thing I noticed was warmth. The air smelled faintly of rosemary and something buttery. My body rested against a sofa softer than anything at the office. I blinked slowly, the haze of exhaustion fading just enough to recognize the place. Floor-to-ceiling windows, dim lights, a quiet rhythm of rain outside. Adrian's penthouse. I sat up too fast, dizziness crashing through me. A voice spoke from across the room. Careful. He was standing near the kitchen island, sleeves rolled up, stirring something on the stove. His tone wasn't sharp this time, carried something close to concern. What am I doing here? I asked, voice hoarse. You collapsed, he said. In the conference room. I tried to remember, but the last few hours dissolved into fragments. He placed a plate on the table, steam rising in the soft light. Eat first, then talk. I hesitated. You didn't have to bring me here. He looked at me, eyes steady. You think I'd leave you there? The question wasn't rhetorical. It was quiet, but it stripped away any room for argument. I lowered my gaze, shame crawling up my neck. My stomach growled at the smell of food. He handed me a fork. Pasta. Nothing fancy. The first bite almost made me dizzy again, but for a different reason. It was warm, rich, real. For weeks I had lived on caffeine and deadlines, and this small kindness hit harder than I expected. He sat across from me, elbows on the table, watching without saying much. When I finally looked up, he asked, "When was the last time you ate properly?" I wanted to lie, but his expression made it useless. I don't remember. He exhaled quietly. You can't keep doing this to yourself. I tried to smile. You sound like HR. HR doesn't mean it, he said. The silence stretched again. The sound of rain filled the gaps between our words. He leaned back slightly, studying me in a way that wasn't professional, not exactly personal either, something in between. You push yourself until you break, he said finally. That's not discipline. That's desperation. The truth in his tone stung. I'm just trying to prove I belong here. You already do. The certainty in his voice made me look up. His eyes met mine, unwavering. You think I don't see how much you give? He continued. I do. Every detail. Every hour you never take back. I swallowed hard, unsure how to hold that kind of attention. "Why does it matter to you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood, walked toward the window, and rested a hand against the glass. The city's reflection shimmered around him. "Because I've seen what happens when people disappear into their work," he said quietly. "I lost someone that way, someone who thought exhaustion was a virtue." The confession hung in the air. He didn't look back. His reflection was enough, shadowed and human. "I didn't notice the signs until it was too late," he said. "Now I notice everything." I didn't know what to say. The distance between us felt fragile, like one wrong word could break it. He turned finally, eyes softer than I had ever seen them. "You scare me," he said simply. "Me? You remind me of what I used to be." Something inside me shifted. The edges of my defenses started to crumble. "I'm not worth that kind of worry," I whispered. His jaw tightened, not from anger, but from something deeper. He crossed the room and crouched in front of me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "You are," he said. My throat closed. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. He reached up and touched my face, thumb brushing the corner of my mouth. It wasn't an intimate gesture, not exactly. It was grounding, steady, human. "Stop treating yourself like you're disposable," he said. The tears came before I could stop them. I hated how easily they fell. He didn't flinch. He just stayed there, his hand still on my cheek, until the tremors eased. When I could finally speak, my voice was barely a whisper. "Why do you care so much?" His eyes flicked between mine. "Because you make me remember what it feels like to care at all." The words hit with the force of something I didn't know I'd been waiting for. The silence afterward was heavy but not suffocating. The kind that held meaning rather than absence. He moved back slightly, letting his hand fall, and straightened up. "Finish your food," he said softly. "Then get some rest." I nodded, still trembling. He turned off the stove, cleaned quietly, and disappeared down the hall for a few minutes. When he came back, he held a folded blanket. "You can use the guest room, or stay here, wherever you're comfortable." The idea of being alone suddenly felt unbearable. "Here," I said before I could change my mind. He nodded once and placed the blanket over the sofa. The fabric smelled faintly of him, a mix of cedar and something warmer. He adjusted the pillows, then stood back, his movements precise, almost cautious. "Try to sleep," he said. "You're safe." The words carried more weight than they should have. I lay down, the sound of the rain filling the quiet. My eyes grew heavy, exhaustion finally claiming me. When I woke again, it was still dark. The rain had softened to a steady rhythm. For a second, I thought I was alone, but then I saw him sitting on the floor beside the sofa, back against it, laptop balanced on his knees. The soft light from the screen carved gentle lines across his face. "You're still awake," I murmured. He looked up, closed the laptop halfway. "Couldn't sleep." "Work." He shook his head. "Habit." I pushed myself up on one elbow. "You don't have to stay here." "I know." He smiled faintly. "I want to." I watched him for a while, the way his fingers moved restlessly against the edge of the laptop, the subtle tension in his shoulders even when he pretended to relax. "You ever stop thinking?" I asked. "Only when you do," he said. The quiet that followed felt different, like the air before a confession. I wanted to tell him how grateful I was, how terrifying it felt to be seen like this, but the words stayed stuck behind my ribs. He finally set the laptop aside and leaned his head back against the sofa cushion, eyes closing briefly. "Get some rest, Jamie," he said. "I'll be right here." I wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't need to keep watch, but there was a calmness in his voice that made it impossible. So I lay back down, letting the sound of the rain blur the edges of my thoughts. Just before sleep took me, I heard him whisper, almost to himself, "You're not alone anymore." When morning came, pale light spilled across the room. He had finally fallen asleep sitting there, head tilted against the sofa. For a long time I just watched him, the way fatigue softened the sharpness of his features, how peace looked foreign but right on his face. Something inside me broke open quietly, not with pain, but with recognition. I didn't know what we were or what this meant, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I didn't want to go back to being invisible. Not after this. The week that followed moved differently, slower somehow, as if time had decided to breathe. The building felt lighter without the constant buzz of gossip. People greeted me again, their eyes uncertain but curious, as though trying to rewrite what they thought they knew. I kept my head down, answering only when necessary, carrying the memory of that night like a secret pulse beneath my skin. Adrian didn't mention it. He didn't bring up the collapse, the tears, or the quiet promise that had hung in the dark between us. He returned to his usual precision, his tone clipped but calm, his attention fixed on work. Yet the air between us carried a different charge, a kind of understanding that didn't need words. Aurora was nearly complete. The program could now detect sincerity through thousands of variables: pitch, eye movement, pauses. It was eerie, watching a machine guess at the hidden language of emotion. Adrian seemed both proud and unsettled by it. Sometimes I caught him standing behind the monitor, watching the simulated faces flicker on screen with something close to regret. "Do you think it feels anything?" I asked one evening. He didn't answer right away. "No," he said at last, "but it's learning to recognize when someone does." The way he said it made my stomach tighten. It was as though he wasn't talking about the program at all. By Friday, we were scheduled to present the final demonstration to the board. The system worked flawlessly, yet when the applause came, Adrian's smile didn't reach his eyes. Later that night, the office emptied, leaving behind only the faint hum of machines cooling down. He stood by the window again, tie loosened, the city sprawling beneath him. "Congratulations," I said softly. He looked over his shoulder. "It's your work too. I just helped polish the edges." He turned fully then, his expression unreadable in the low light. Edges are what keep things from breaking. There was something final in his tone, something that made me feel we had reached the end of a story neither of us wanted to finish. I gathered my things, unsure if I should stay or go. As I walked to the elevator, I heard him call my name. "Jamie." I stopped. He crossed the room slowly, his footsteps measured, stopping just close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. "Tomorrow," he said, "meet me where it started. The rooftop." He didn't have to say it. I nodded and he let me go. The next day, the rain returned. It wasn't heavy, just a thin silver curtain drifting over the city. The air smelled clean, new. I took the elevator up, the same one I'd ridden that first morning with shaking hands. When the doors opened, the rooftop looked exactly the same and completely different at once. The puddles shimmered with light. The edge of the building was lined with droplets like glass beads. He was already there. Adrian stood near the railing, no umbrella, rain streaking down his hair and collar. His shirt clung to him, pale against the dark sky. He turned when he heard me, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. "I thought you'd change your mind," he said. "I almost did." He gave a faint nod, as if that answer made sense. The wind moved between us, cool and steady. "I used to come up here every time I lost someone," he said quietly. "It's strange how grief and clarity always meet in high places." I stepped closer, careful on the wet concrete. "Why ask me to come?" He exhaled slowly. "Because this is where I saw you for the first time, and nothing's felt the same since." I looked down at the city below, the lights trembling in the drizzle. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "I know." His gaze held mine. "That's why it matters." The rain thickened, soft but relentless. My hair stuck to my forehead. I could hear my own heartbeat over the wind. "You changed the code," I said, remembering the last test logs. "Aurora reacts differently now." He smiled faintly, almost wistfully. "No, you did. You changed it when you taught it to see more than data." "I only taught it to listen." "Exactly." He took another step closer. The distance between us felt fragile. "You made it recognize truth." He looked down, then back at me. And somewhere along the way, it recognized mine. My breath caught. What truth? That I can't keep pretending to feel nothing. His voice was quiet but steady. Every day I watched you, and I kept telling myself it was responsibility, admiration, guilt, anything but what it really was. The rain blurred the space between us, 1,000 tiny sounds filling the silence. I thought I was saving you that night, he said. But you're the one who saved me. Something in my chest tightened until it hurt. My throat ached with unshed words. He reached up, fingers brushing against my jaw, cautious, asking permission without speaking. I didn't move away. The contact was gentle, almost reverent. A touch that felt like an answer to every question I hadn't dared to ask. Jamie, he said, voice roughened by the wind. I don't know what happens next. I only know I don't want to keep waking up to a world where I don't see you. I swallowed hard, the rain sliding down my face, salt mixing with water. You don't need to make promises. I'm not. He smiled faintly. I'm just telling the truth. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The city shimmered below us, alive and endless. The air between us hummed, filled with the sound of rain hitting steel. Then I said, almost a whisper, I'm scared. Of me. Of what this means. He nodded once. So am I. His honesty broke something open in me. The fear, the longing, the quiet ache that had lived in my chest for months spilled out all at once. I stepped closer until the space between us disappeared. He didn't move. His breath brushed against my temple, warm even in the cold. The touch that followed wasn't dramatic, just real. His forehead rested against mine, our breathing slow and uneven. The world narrowed to the sound of rain and the faint rhythm of his heart beneath the damp fabric of his shirt. When he finally pulled back, the look in his eyes was steady, grounded. Whatever this is, he said softly, we'll find a way through it, one step at a time. I nodded, unable to speak. My hands trembled, not from cold, but from the weight of everything I felt. We stayed there, side by side, watching the clouds move. Below us, the city lights flickered like constellations trapped beneath glass. Later, when we returned inside, the hum of the building greeted us again. The aurora monitor glowed faintly in the dark, lines of code drifting across the screen. A soft tone echoed from the speaker. Happiness detected. Connection established. Adrian's eyes met mine, and for the first time, he smiled, not the polite curve he gave the world, but something genuine and unguarded. We didn't talk about moving in or futures or definitions. We didn't need to. The silence carried everything words could ruin. He turned off the lights, and the reflection of the city filled the room. The sound of rain softened to a whisper. For a long moment we simply stood there, facing the windows, the ghost of our own reflections looking back. His hand brushed against mine, tentative, searching. I let my fingers curl around his. Outside, dawn began to rise through the clouds, a pale warmth spreading across the skyline. The light touched his face first, and I realized how different he looked when he wasn't hiding behind control. I thought about the night on the rooftop, the rain, the fear, the way I had wanted to disappear. And now, standing beside him, I understood something simple and quiet. Being seen wasn't the same as being saved. But sometimes it was enough. As the city woke below us, I felt his thumb trace a slow, steady line across my palm. It wasn't a promise, not exactly. It was a reminder. Neither of us was alone anymore. Thank you for listening to Love Waves, where every heartbeat becomes a story. If this one touched you, stay a little longer. Here, love isn't loud, it lingers in quiet moments. In the rain, in the spaces between two people who dare to see each other. Every week we bring you new tales of longing, healing, and the kind of connection that changes everything. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and let the next wave carry you somewhere tender, somewhere real. Because on Love Waves, every story starts with a single heartbeat and ends where love finally feels like home.